Hello everyone, this is Tim Wilmot speaking. Welcome to my demo and paint along experience for April. Anyone who's been on my previous online workshops will know the format. I've chosen a subject to paint beforehand, and then over the next hour and a half up to 2 hours, I will demonstrate my watercolor painting process to you and answer any questions you may have along the way, of course. And as I go through, I will try and give you as much commentary and description to what I'm doing. Now, I'm going to have to try and speak maybe very clearly and slowly, because there are some people, there are some attendees that I know English is not your first language, so apologies. But I will try and speak slowly and clearly for you so that you can understand me. So it would be very good if someone could just pop in the chat window that you can hear me okay. Oh, great stuff. Thank you very much. So this event is being recorded, this demo is being recorded, and after the presentation, you will hopefully receive an email from the Crowdcast system I'm using today with a link to the recording. It should be the same URL, the same link that you're using right now. So shouldn't be difficult. And after the event, please allow a little bit of time for the system to process the recording. It has to do something technical in the background to save it in the right format and make it available to us. Also, I may post the video as an unlisted entry on my YouTube channel, so made available just for you if you want to look at it in that format. So you've got to be registered for this workshop. So it's a bit of a sort of invitation only closed workshop just for you that are registered. Now, a big part of this event is that I want to see your painting and share it with the watercolor community. So if you email me a photo of your completed painting later on, I will compile a short video for my YouTube channel. You might have seen some that I've done before. And so you send me a photo and I compile a little video and I go through and maybe spend a minute or so on each person's painting, just giving, it's just my feeling, just my my critique of your painting. Don't take it too seriously, but hopefully it should give you some pointers on my feedback on your efforts. So more on that later on. Now, the audio is one way only. Your microphone is on mute. Just want to check, can everyone see the video? My hand is right in the middle now. There we go, stretched out. Yeah, good. Okay, great stuff. Thanks, everyone. So the audio is one way only. Your microphone is on mute. As you found already, there is this chat panel over on the side there where you can type something in or write down the bottom if I'm pointing the right way. So you found that out. If you have a question, and I really would encourage you to ask as many questions as you want to, there is the ask a question button towards the bottom of the screen. And when I reach certain stage of the painting, I will do my best to answer those. I'll give out your first name or whatever name you've registered with. Well, we can see everyone that's on the session and answer that as best I can. If you've seen me paint before, you'll know that I normally have 4 main stages to the painting. There's the initial sketch, the first wash, the darks, and then the detail stage as well. There'll be with this painting, there'll be those similar stages. So I will stop and we'll have a little bit of a breather and just check any recent questions and answers. As I go through those questions as well, they will be time-stamped so that when you're looking at a recording, you can look at those questions and you can click on them. You can go to the part of the recording that's relevant to that answer. So I can see that you're used to the chat window already. You've been introducing yourselves already, and you've been, thank you, you've been popping in your location. That's really good. So we've got people from all over the world. Hyun, don't worry, you will see most of the painting in a minute. So just a reminder, ideally, please use the Ask Question button if you want to ask something, not the chat window. With lots of messages in the chat, it'll be difficult for me to spot the questions from just normal sort of chat, normal comments. So thank you very much for that. All right, so the subject of our April session is a stormy sea scene. So this is one I've done earlier. So I've done a few practices of this, and unlike most of my other sessions, there's no reference photo for this painting. We are going to use our imagination. We're going to have a little bit of fun. And when we do things like that, certainly for me, when I do an imaginary painting, I'm making something up. I'm not using a reference photo. I have to plan it through. I have to think it through. I've got to practice that painting or do a sketch or a thumbnail sketch, maybe one or many times, just to get right what my process will be. I can't really, for me, I can't dive into it and suddenly conjure up a half-decent painting. I've got to go through a few practices. So I have done a few. Let me just see if there's another one I've got here. I think that was the first one I did some time ago. But so the whole idea with this is going to be a rough sea. There's got to be a bit of movement, a bit of atmosphere in the painting. So in all the practices, I've got a bit of soft light coming through, not in the middle, to one side or the other, okay? And then we have, of course, in watercolor, we want to play on values. We want areas of dark and areas of light. And we want to put them up against each other so that we get areas of big contrast, which can create more of an impact in a watercolor painting. And then with the sea, I want to create a bit of, as I say, a bit of atmosphere, a bit of movement, not a flat, the calm sea, a bit of movement with the shape and the form of the waves and the color of the waves. And they're fairly random, these waves. Now, the good way to think about waves, and we're going to have background, middle ground, foreground. The good thing for me, the good thing to think about waves is think of them not as liquid, but as a solid form. Think of them like a mountain range. We're up in a hot air balloon and we're looking down at the Alps or some big mountain range, and we have these crests and troughs, the undulating form of the waves, and bits of darkness in the trough of the wave, bits of light hitting the crest, hitting the top of the wave as well. So this was I think the first demonstration I did, and I made a little note down here. I put in too much white paint. So as I'm doing these practices, I'm doing a little debrief. I'm doing a summary. I'm being a critique to myself, and I'm thinking, what went right? What went wrong? What would I try and prevent myself doing the next time? You'll notice with all the skies, I'm trying to make it nice and soft. Certainly a soft edge. Do you see around the bright light there and the sky, and generally harder edges on the boats and some of the waves. I'm planning on having 2 boats in this scene, a big boat nearer to us and a boat further away. So a smaller size boat, lighter in value. It's going to push it back. So that was the first one. I wasn't happy with this. I'm not even sure which direction that boat's going. But I did a lot of wet in this one, a lot of wet paper, and I don't think for me, it didn't work too well. It sort of looks like sea, but not too realistic. I did get quite a nice sort of a sort of angular pattern to that shard of light coming through. Anyway, dispense with those 2. This might have been the 3rd one I did. So I should actually say what we're using. Let me just describe some of the materials we're going to be using for this painting as well. First of all, a pencil to do the outline sketch. Come on to that in a minute. Then I've got some masking tape, some DIY masking tape, because here and here I put in little pieces of tape after I did the drawing, but before I start painting, so that I get really nice crisp edges and it's white. And yes, you get that nice hard edge. So 1 or 2 pieces, 2 little slivers of masking tape, carefully put on the boat. They don't need to be too precise. The boats are sort of rocking about. We don't want them too perfect in shape, all right? So a couple of bits of masking tape. Brush wise, for all of these, I used this flat brush for doing the sky quickly, or laying down a little bit of water first and then the sky. And then I changed to a mop brush for doing everything else, all of the waves and the boats. And then a smaller detail brush for masts, bit of rigging, bit of white highlight, the birds, maybe some of these foamy white marks in the sea as well. So we will need a little bit of white paint. So that's the materials. I'll describe the materials as I go through. It's up to you if you paint along with me. I know from previous paintings, half of you just watch, ask questions, just sort of digest what the way my particular way of doing it. And the other half do it live with me. It's entirely up to you. Some people may do more than one. No problem at all. It's entirely up to you. So I'll describe the materials and a little bit more precisely the techniques as I go through. Notice I do, being pretty tight and saving money, I've used both sides of the paper with some watercolor paper. or with most better quality watercolor paper, you can use both sides, all right? Doesn't really matter. I'm using Saunders Waterford. Some people say one side's better than the other. There's a difference of absorbency on one or the other, but it doesn't really matter. And you may do this once and think, well, I want to have another go. Also, what I find with doing something from imagination, particularly a seascape, is that during this period of lockdown, when we might be exhausting photographs, we may not be able to go out and travel and paint plein air. Maybe just use this time when most of us are indoors. I think we're in our own homes, our own home location. Do something like this, is, you know, now and again do a little seascape. You could have one seascape really rough, another one calm. I think I do have a calmer sea scene somewhere. Bear with me a second. Yeah, there we are. Here is, totally from imagination, a calmer sea, but the same principles, the softness, all right, to the sky, bringing that down into the water. This is probably slightly easier to do. Easy transition, a graded wash from the dark blue down into the sea. And well, that could be done with a flat brush or a hake, a small hake, or with a bigger mop brush as well. Okay, and then the boat and the waves, just as we're going to do with a smaller mop brush, and harder edges here with the calmer sea. So what else can I say about this? So think of the waves as solid. Think of them as mountain ranges. This one's quite easy because we've really got, there's the horizon, of course, the two boats on the horizon, and then this section here. So this section here, okay, we can call that section number one, separated from the next section down by a crest. Now I've drawn in, or I will be drawing in, at the tops of these waves, a little bit of a foamy bit, a lighter area. And we're going to drop in a little bit of blue. We've got some bright light coming towards that wave. And that will be a nice way of defining that crest. Maybe there might be a couple. And then, so there's that section there, and then this section here. And we can have a bit of fun and play around with starting dark and getting lighter to the next wave, or lighter and coming darker to the next wave. But just try and think of the form of these waves, all right? And there's certainly going to be a little bit of wet in wet here as well, in the sky, in the waves. Do you see some of these marks? I'll describe my way of doing that wet and wet as we go through. So, imaginary painting, think about planning. Use your imagination, and then maybe also do a little sketch with a pen. In this case, it's a felt tip pen, but same things. I'm just planning where I'm going to have my two boats. Generally, to get the idea of movement, I've got one boat going up and the smaller boat, the distant boat, coming down. All right, so I'm not having them both going up. Or or you could do them a little bit like that, but I thought it was quite good having it, the bigger left-hand one going slightly up, exposing some of the bow, the light hitting the front of the cabin, and then the distant one going down. Right, now, so that's the preamble, that's the intro. Let me just see, and hopefully the lighting is all right here as well for you with this new system. Every system I use for these demos, they handle the camera a little bit differently, and the video, all the technology is a little bit different. The reason I'm using Crowdcast is that it's reputedly got good video, good HD video recording. I think the interface that you see as an attendee is quite easy. There's no adverts. It's nice and simple, and a great way of you interacting and seeing who else is there and asking me questions as I go through. Right, let me just check the questions then. Okay, I think I've answered Rhonda's question. Well, let me just start answering Daniel's question. Hi, Tim, new to watercolor, and after watching your videos, I am always curious about your water situation off screen. Do you use a single container or have separate clean water splash and rinsing? No, I've just got one water container, quite large. This is one I sometimes use. It's a decorator's bucket. All right, so big one. I don't mind if the water gets dirty. When I am outdoors, I'll have an even smaller container, which I haven't got handy here. Yeah, so one, it doesn't matter, the water gets a little bit dirty. So that's, hopefully that's an answer to your question there, Daniel. Just incidentally, can people see the question and answer section as I see it here? Thanks, Daniel. Okay, thanks everyone. Right, so Rhonda, I think you've had the URL for the attendance. Jen, there's no reference photo. We're just going to use our imagination, and there are some links. You will see at the bottom of the screen a link to a practice painting done by me, an online image there just to help you. Right, Gary, very good question. Is there an alternative color to the blue and the green? Now, I'm going to be doing this with a Viridian green and maybe a little bit of cobalt green. There's nothing stopping you for the atmosphere, maybe doing it all in ultramarine blue. So ultramarine blue is the predominant color, or maybe I was thinking also, how about burnt umber or even alizarin crimson? Use your imagination, have a bit of fun. If you're going to do two, do them in different colors. I don't mind. Send them both to me. See what comes up. I think green, for me, green gives the appearance of a cold sea, a cold scene. All right. And having studied lots of other maritime painting, I think predominantly that green, cobalt green, that's the predominant color. Jeff, hi Tim, not got the green, always been taught not to use green, but mix from blue and yellow. I have cadmium yellow and a number of blues. Any ideas? Yeah, so you could mix a green with those. Predominantly it's going to be a cool green, so not so much yellow, a little bit more blue, possibly to get in the sort of more opaque color of the sea. You could mix in a tiny bit of white paint or white gouache, maybe, just to give it that sort of more pasty, thicker look, more opaque look. So hopefully that answers your question, Jeff, but nothing stopping you doing an ultramarine blue. Nothing at all. Rhonda, I think I've done your question. Rosella, yes, hello from Italy. And Ingo, hello, Tim. You always use the same color for your paintings. Is there a reason for it? I don't. If you mean the palette, I don't often change that. I think if I keep changing colors, there's enough things to think about in watercolor. There's enough variables without making life more difficult for yourself and introducing lots of the latest color of the season. So I just stick to the staples and stick with that, really. Right, last question. Can you use masking fluid instead of masking tape? That's from Tom. Yes, of course you can. You could use masking fluid instead of masking tape. It's just that I get on better with masking tape. All right. I will come back to questions later on. So let me just start now by making the outline sketch. Just put these to one side. So where's my pencil gone? There we go. Right. So I'm going landscape orientation. I think that's appropriate here for a seascape. And thinking about the horizon, the sea is the focus of this painting. So that has to be the dominant area of the scene, a little bit for the sky at the top, all right? And just starting on the left-hand side, I will just loosely I would loosely draw in, just with a few marks, the horizon. And then I come to big boat number one, thinking about the angle of the boat, not too steep. Don't go overboard, but maybe a gentle incline would be quite good, just to give the feeling of this rocky sea. And then we come out, we have a bit of light here and over to boat number two, pointing down the other way like that, and then the waves go off to the right-hand side. Cabin for boat number one. Now there's lots of different formats of fishing boats. Some of them may have the cabin at the front and all of their fishing gear and masts and poles and so on at the back. Others may have the cabin at the back, and then all the masts may be at the front. It's entirely up to you. I'm going for a little cabin like that one, and then let's keep the second boat sort of similar. Something like that. Then the waves. So thinking about those different sections. So we have that first section below the boats, and we get thicker sections as we come towards us. So this is where you can have a bit of fun with the wave formation. And you've got to think that it's rocking about. Don't make them too perfect. Don't make them too symmetrical. They're being buffeted by different forces, below the water, above the water, wind, So don't make them too perfect. Now, so that's section number 1. This is section number 2 here. All right, number 2, and then number 3. Our third section. And what I'm doing on some of the crests of the waves is now drawing the outline for the white bits, the top crest of the wave. So let me just go back to this section here, first of all, and just think where I will have that white band, and it's not, again, it's not going to be symmetrical. It's going to be a little bit narrower than the other bands that are closer to us. Over on the right-hand side, the white area there, and the tops of these foamy parts, the waves, are not going to be flat. They're not going to be straight. So there's going to be a little bit like as I drew there. All right, and just have a little bit of fun and not making them too flat and uniform. Right, this bigger wave. So my biggest wave is going to be here and another one over here. All right, so there's one there, and this wave so it comes around. Crest of the wave comes around, then we got another white bit there. So I've got, how many white pieces have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To try and keep these lighter areas fairly clean, using a rubber eraser, just rub out any lines you might have between the top and the bottom of that wave. Let's try and make it nice and bright. Nice and bright on the tops and the middle bit. Let's just do this one a bit more here. Okay, and just for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll try and make these a little bit darker for you. I wouldn't normally do this, I would be still quite light, but I'm pressing harder with my pencil just so that you get the idea and we can see exactly where those waves are. And when I come to execute the troughs between these crests, I'll decide whether I'm going light to dark or dark to light. More on that in a minute. I'll not do the masks. I'll just draw those in. I'll paint those in freehand. What I'm going to do now is tear or cut. So you might like to, with your masking tape, actually cut out these little bits. So let me try and do that. So here's my masking tape. Let's get in a flat edge, and so this is going to be for the first boat and just stick that down there. Okay, doesn't matter if I've gone over those pencil lines. And then a little, oh, I've got a little bit of a triangle showing here. Let's just have another bit, maybe like that. It's an inverted triangle there over the top of that cabin. So the light for me is coming this direction. So that's going to be light. So it'll be light hitting the side of this boat and the front of that boat. Right, that's my initial drawing done. So are there any questions before I then, the next step will be doing the sky. All right. So are there any questions, please? Just check the chat window. Hyun, are you okay now? Hyun, me? If you can say something. Just saw something ecstatic in the chat window. Right. Oh, a question from Hyun, me. So usually you use cold pressed paper, but this one looks like it's hot pressed. No, this is cold pressed. There, it's got a little bit of a rough surface. Actually, probably this sort of painting probably doesn't matter whether it's any of the three different textures. Hot is the smooth. Not is the middle, and then rough probably doesn't matter actually. So any of the surfaces will do. The best thing though is something that is a good quality watercolor paper, and it's got an absorbency, and the paint's going to stay wetter longer. So because of the cotton based nature of better quality watercolor paper. Question from Jeff. Tim, did you answer? Oh, so Jeff was offline. Yeah, Jeff, you will see, when you get the recording, you will see my answer about the colors. I think, Jeff, your question was that you didn't have a green. So by all means, mix up a blue with a yellow, but it needs to be a cool green, all right? So maybe more blue than yellow, and you may need to do a little bit of practice to get that kind of viridian green, and also adding in a little bit of white maybe to give you more of an opaque nature for the sea. Right, there we go. Question from Hev. Hopefully I pronounced your name okay, Hev. So, question from Hev. Tim, which angle is your board? And the angle is, it's about 10 degrees. So I'm sloping down towards me, and yes, it's about that off the horizontal, something like that. Okay. Right. So Jensen, Jensen, why don't you use acrylic white but gouache white paints? I think acrylic, yeah, most people would use a titanium white or a white gouache for the highlights at the end. Right, I'll answer some more questions when we've done the sky. Okay, so we're going to start now painting the sky. I want, going back to my reference photo, I want this brighter area here. So I'm going to as my water is clean now, I'm dipping my brush in the water, fully loaded mop brush or a flat brush here, and just softly painting in clear water the area. I'm coming down a little bit into the sea area. When I start doing the sea, this might still be a little bit damp, so that when I paint the horizon, I may get some nice, softer, distant waves, okay? So that's all nice and wet. I'm not doing the whole sky, just really beyond the area where I want that lighter area to be, sort of circular, okay? Now, same brush. And this is where I'm using a little bit of this Viridian. And then start painting the sky. Generally, the sky is going to be a little bit darker than the sea. So I can pick up a little bit of neutral tint or Payne's grey to darken this sky. And in a random brush fashion, I'm not doing straight lines. I'm just painting in different directions, trying to get in different values in the sky. Maybe quite dark to the edge, lighter as we come into that the lighter area. Over the boat. Keep mixing. Now, as I come down to the horizon, don't want to be too precise here. Pick up a little bit of neutral tint and to create a dramatic sky. Now, over to the right-hand side. Same procedure. Go a little bit darker to the edge of the paper and tops of the waves like that. Maybe pick up a little bit of more neutral tint and slap it on there. Now just leave that area. Resist the temptation to go back to it, try lifting it, putting a paper towel on it. Honestly, just resist the temptation to tamper with it. And that is my sky. So I've gone over the boats Have I gone over them? Yeah, I've gone over the boats. I can still just about see the pencil outline of the boats. That for me is the sky, almost done. Sorry, there's a little bit of glare showing here. This will, when it dries, you'll begin to see a little bit more. Right. So, questions. So the next step after this, by the way, will be I'm going to paint in these waves here. All right. And actually, let me do those waves now. Just while that sky is drying and while you're thinking of any questions, these waves with, where's my small mop brush? Right, small mop brush, clear water. Dry. Hopefully that won't travel anymore. This is the thing about watercolor. It's still doing its own thing. It's still traveling. Hopefully I won't close that gap up. If you think it is going to close up, then get the hairdryer out and dry it to stop it moving. So mop brush, clear water, and just follow, just paint inside the shape of the crests of these waves. All right. Paint inside those. And there's a bigger one. Might be a little bit difficult because you are painting with clean water here to see exactly. So you might need to just look at it against the light to make sure that there's a little bit of a shine on the surface of the paper. Last one. Last one there. Now, the sun, this bright sun is coming towards us. We want to have a little bit of blue. So not too much water on the brush. All right, not too much water. Pick up a little bit of light blue, a cobalt blue. I've got a cerulean blue here. And just drop it in at the bottom of the waves in a random format, not too precise, not too much, because we want to have the tops of the waves white. Like that. So that's the first stage really of the wash. That's probably gone a little bit too much, but it doesn't matter. It almost looks like a bolt of lightning coming down. It's not as, see that one there is quite big. Anyway, it's all right. Okay, questions. While this is drying, let's go back to some questions. Philippe, what angle do you suggest? Well, it can be anywhere. I wouldn't go flat. I wouldn't go flat. But anywhere from like 10 to maybe 45 would be a good angle. I know some people paint almost vertical, particularly if they're doing, say, demonstrations to an art class. And you've got to be fairly thick and very controlled and very quick. And just keep control of things when you've got a very steep board. But for me, it's going to be kind of in that range, Philippe. Okay. James, what are the differences between gouache and the titanium? Sorry about the spelling. So gouache has got the what's the ingredient? Egg tempura. It's got some other ingredient in it to make it thicker. So you're almost using gouache a little bit like acrylic or oils. Now this one I've got, this is a bit unusual because this one from Shinhan, a Korean make, this one, I don't know whether you can see it there, but it says a hybrid of watercolor and gouache. So it's a little bit of watercolor, a little bit of gouache. So gouache is going to be very opaque, chalky, thicker, and I use it with not a lot of water. But if you've got titanium white or Chinese white, that will be fine. So Jen, how soon will we get the replay link? I want to paint when I'm done watching, but would like to have the video to refer to. It may be after about half an hour, I reckon. All right, so just be patient, wait half an hour, and then just use the same URL that's up there, same URL, just return. We'll keep this open. That might even work as well. So I'm a little bit, I don't have the precise answer to you because I'm still testing this new system and its performance. So let me know how soon you get that, Jen. Right, okay. Merhaba, Kazim. Okay, so back to the sea in these bands, okay? So band number 1, band number 2, and band number 3, right? And I'll probably paint in that boat in the this first band, so it kind of connects with the sea a little bit more. Let me just see if I can tease this little bit of masking tape off. Don't want to damage the surface of the paper. Just excuse me here. It's coming. I probably pressed too hard when I put it down. There we go. Do you see? Look at that hard edge. Now I'll paint around here a little bit, so it won't be like a triangle as such, but the most important bit was that top edge, just to get something a bit more dramatic. Right. So C section number 1. Medium-sized mop brush for me. Okay. And we're going to come down. We're going to come down to the tops of these waves. Same mixture, really, that I was using before. Possibly a little bit lighter in value than the sky. All right. So I'm using a little bit of cobalt green here, which is, I suppose it would be, cobalt green would be similar to if I added that viridian green to white gouache, I would get that, I'm pretty sure. Now you've got to, as we're painting here, we've got to try and think of the formation of these waves, these peaks and troughs, and on the horizon, just leave the suggestion of a few few waves just exploding and so down to the tops of these waves. With some of these waves, it doesn't matter if you leave a few little bits of paper showing. That could be the light hitting just a tinier, more distant wave. Just remove this rogue hair. So coming down, sort of up to that first bigger boat. And then now the light is coming down here, and it's just hitting the sides of some waves. Down to the top. So I'm gradually, because I'm right-handed, I'm just going from left to right. And the shape of this brush makes it very easy to create some more convincing wave shapes. Let's have one there, one on the right-hand side. They're going to be narrower in the distance, then a little bit thicker. Excuse me, a little bit thicker as we come down towards us. Maybe a little bit darker as well. Pick up a bit of that neutral tint I've got in that top, mixing well. Continue over. Excuse a little bit of silence here. I'm trying to think now. This area here, let's have a few little white bits showing, a little bit darker. Just picked up a little bit of neutral tint, mix it before going onto the paper. And then over to the right-hand side. So I'm going to have a little narrow wave there. That's probably the narrowest one, followed by that one, a bit thicker still. as we go down. Now, as this is damp now, it's just beginning to lose its shine. I can go in, you need to be a bit careful here, with thicker paint to get in some softer waves. So thicker and darker, less water. Just a few. We're going to be doing more of this as we come down the picture. That's probably a little bit too dry there. That was perfect. Do you see that's going nice and soft? Now, as I'm coming over here, this is wetter. There's more of a shine here. So I've got to be a bit careful. If I went in now with this brush, I'm going to create some blooms, some cauliflowers, which I don't really want unless I go really thick. Unless I go really thick, almost no water at all, damp brush, just picking up a bit of pigment there. So you've got to think mountains again, and the little bit of darkness that may form behind the opposite side to where the light's coming from. Not too much. Let's draw in the far boat here. Not too dark. And remember, we want it sort of pointing down into the water. And then the cabin. I'm using a little bit of ultramarine blue here and a neutral tint. Now the cabin, don't need to be too precise, but something like something a little bit like that. Okay, it's in the distance. Light's catching the back of the cabin. It's going that way. Very loosely painted in. We'll do that one towards the end. So, briefly, any questions? I'm going to do 2 and 3 next, but let me just see if there's any questions. So, hi and me. So the wave bands, are they supposed to get wider as they come closer? Yes, they are. Think again like a mountain range. So narrow, little bit wider, and wider still. So definitely is. Unless, you know, you could think if you are a little bit lower, our position looking at the scene. Maybe this wave here might go up and it will obscure this. That could be some drama as well. You need to practice to see what you can pull off. Just use my finger here. Don't be afraid to use your fingers within reason. Right. So thank you very much, Hi and me. Right, let me just crack on then. We'll continue on. Section 2 and section 3. Same way. Now, section 2, think about it before diving right in. Let's have this. Let's do this one lighter and then darker. All right, and then this one I'll go the opposite way around, darker and then lighter. See what you think about that. Right, let's just wash off, same brush, just going to wash off what I had before. And let's make sure I've got plenty of mixture here. So, starting from the left again, maybe just a thin little slither of wave forming there, going up to the edge of the top of the wave. Plenty of water on the brush. Now we've got a bit of wave here. And we want to go darker as I come down to the next wave. Ooh, too dark. Okay, something like that. That's the idea. And now we will continue with this far side. And now get a bit darker and a little bit thicker. Keep mixing. So I've just gone down or I've gone darker by a step or two there. Again, it doesn't matter if you've got some little bits of the paper showing through. That could be a wave that's just suddenly exploded and there's a bit of foam blowing around. Could be anything. I need to work quite quickly because my paper is drying very quickly. And I want there to be a soft, graded transition. Excuse me while I work a little bit more faster here. darker still. Remember the rough edge to the top. Of that wave there. Now, again, as that's drying, we can go in with some thicker color just to emphasize some little wave formations here. The form of the wave, see a little sweeping motion with the brush, not too much. There we are, a little bit darker. Right, and now this final section at the bottom. So we'll go dark and then come lighter. And imagine, again, thinking about the curve of this wave. And so maybe going a little bit in this direction, and then on the right-hand side going over to the right. Okay. So mix something dark, bit more water, neutral tint, bit of Iridian, bit of my cobalt green, neutral tint. Not a perfect edge. Neutral tint. Back over to the left-hand side. Again, I need to work fairly quickly. So a lot more water now. And come fairly lighter. Introduce a few little dots in there. Fairly lighter now towards me. And notice the way I'm using the brush. One way, that way, one way, that way, rather than too uniform, just to make it more interesting and to have that sort of wave shape. Now, as this is drying, again, as we did before, thicker, darker paint, a darker value, maybe using the same colors as we did before. but thicker. And just now try and create some more. I need to mix up a little bit more. Create some more realistic wave shapes. Again, this brush is ideal for doing that. Don't go in too wet, otherwise, like that one there, it's not perfect. So let me just make it a little bit thicker. And these shapes will be bigger as they come towards us. So let that just do its own thing for a little bit. Not too many. Do a few, stand back and just think, does it look like a wave? Does it look like maybe some of the waves I can see just a little bit through that wave to the other side? They're a little bit more translucent. Others, they're thicker. This wave is curling over the top. So we can see a little bit of darkness underneath. The shadow, if you like. Not too many. There we are. I'm going to let that dry a bit. Don't make the foreground too fussy. You can overdo it. So just, I'm being very careful here not to overdo things. Just emphasizing some marks here. It's just a great way of using watercolor and all these. I'm just looking at it from one side, these little nice marks. That this is what watercolor does. You know, these little lighter areas forming and the soft edges around that as well. There is a little bloom appearing here, which I don't mind. That actually can look quite nice. You could be brave or stupid, but just try and emphasize it a little bit, lift it off with a towel, paper towel or something similar, just to see what happens. Yes, that's pretty much the waves done. I might go in with a little bit of white paint just to emphasize a few areas, but that's it. Next step, we're letting this dry. Next step is going to be the boats, the detail, masts, rigging, that's maybe a few seagulls as well. Typically, fishing boats, they're going to have, you've got to think what makes the scene look more realistic. So seagulls gathering above the back of the ship as the fishermen are chucking things away, or an opportune seagull can see a chance of nicking some fish. There'll be some seagulls there. Just to add another sort of dimension, not too many in the top, but just a little bit of an extra dimension, interest to the topper portion. Right, questions. Marilyn, my screen is frozen. Is it me or everyone? Has the screen frozen for anyone else? You may have to wait until, it'd be good to know, it'd be good to give me some feedback on whether the recording you see is a better quality and not jerky. You see, there's lots of factors here. There's my upload speed, and I've got quite a fast upload speed where I am today. So there's my upload speed to the service, and then there's your download speed to you. There's lots of factors. So I'm sorry about that, Marilyn, but have a look, take a look at the recording, and if you can try and remember where your system stopped or the video stopped, just see after that, did it correct itself on the recording? Right, James, I've been taught to grade my color strength from 1 to 10, lightest at 1 and 10 the strongest. Could you suggest the strengths you have used here, appreciating we don't all see exactly the same? Well, I don't have any 10s, although I will have a 10 when I come on to the mass and this dark boat. That'll probably be a 9 or 10. This, James, might be a 7 or an 8. We've got the sky, could be a 6. And then C here, ooh, that's kind of in the middle. It's almost in the middle, that C. So this might be a 5 there. And then obviously we've got bits of white. That's the 1, if you like, on your scale. That light blue could be a 2 or a 3. So yeah, mostly dark, but very little 10 and very little 1. You've got a concentration in the middle. You can see here these waves getting a little bit softer. Jensen, my screen sometime blurry. Yeah, that's the video catching up with itself. It might have occurred when I first started my transmission, just thinking about the buffering of the initial videos. So it should get a little bit better as time goes on. But again, Jensen, you tell me what the recording's like, please. Okay, excuse me. Right. Main boat. Let me just peel off that masking tape there again. Let's just see if I can get off of my nails to reveal, hopefully, fingers crossed, a nice white edge. Okay, it looks all right to me. So this boat is going to be, value-wise, is going to be a bit similar to that, James, or this down here. Okay. Let's not go green. Let's mix in a little bit of ultramarine blue, and a bit of burnt sienna, bit of neutral tint, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and mix up. My brush is not too wet. I want a good edge to it, a good edge, and maybe a good point as well. All right. So keep mixing. And thinking about this boat, the back of it, So top of the boat, front of the boat. Maybe it's just ever so slightly showing the front to us. And then continuing up the ship to the bow. Let's have the bows sort of about like that. A little bit of a curve in it, if you can see. And then just a hint of a few reflections of this fishing boat, again using the same brush with a few little thin. I need to get a good edge on this brush. A few little waves there, not too many. Perhaps there's something in the middle of the boat there. Could have a crewman. There we are. The figure has appeared. And just a few little thin waves there. Right. Now, mask time. So I'll stop using that brush. I could actually do masks with that one. I've got quite a good edge, but let me just use my preferred brush, which will be a detailed brush, a small round brush. So you could use something like that, or I've got an Escoda Prado brush. Is there another one here? There we are. There's another Escoda. But basically, when it's wet, you will get a nice edge to it, which is what we want for the mask. So same color, not too much water, and going back to what I said earlier about where will, on a boat where the cabin's at the back, where will the mast be? So there could be, and think about the angle of the boat. So it's going to be at right angles, of course. So something like that. Maybe something at the back. There's some sonar, radar, whatever, on top of that boat. Likewise on boat number 2. not too dark. So let's have a little line like that. These fishing boats may be pulling some line. So this one here, perhaps there's one there, another one there, another one for that one as well. Some seagulls. I had hoped to leave maybe just a few little white specks of paper in the sky, but do you see this little white speck here? So that could be part of a seagull. So let's just put in a few. Don't do them all these shapes. A few there. And the back of the main boat. Not too regimented, have them, some of them touching each other. Not too many. Like that. Wash, brush off. Now for the final stages, where we will put in some white. So where's my white paint here? Make sure my brush is really clean. Same brush, good point. Nice thin brush. Could use a rigger, could use a sword brush. They have a good, when it's damp, they have a really good point. Look at that. Okay, something like that. Those of you that are quite experienced will be well aware of what brush to use for what situation. Now, I do have some white paint that I put out some time ago, but I'm going to pick up some neat stuff out the tube here. And just pick up a few bits of the birds. Parts of the sonar on the boat, maybe a bit of the figure, some of the rigging. Bit of the line there. Here on boat number 2. So of course the light's hitting the back of this boat. Not too much. Just to give a sense of some light and dark in there. Some of these birds as well. A little bit of light. And the other thing we can do with this white paint is have some sort of lacy effect on the surface of the water, where a wave has sort of exploded and it's sort of left this trail behind it. if I can only describe it, a bit like a sort of lacy sort of appearance to it. So again, in a sort of random fashion, I'm just drawing some squiggly lines. Again, not too much. I don't want to overdo it on some of these waves. I want to try and keep them fairly fresh. Something else we can do with the boats is have a line going up the hull, up the top of the hull near the gunnel of the boat there. Let's see if I can mix in. Let's use a bit of orange on this one. Fairly thick. I've got to be a little bit careful here. Just the hint of a line going up the boat there. And maybe let's have another one on second boat. A blue, not too much water. Follow the line of the top of the hull like that. And there we are. That's pretty much it. This boat here, I think I might need a little bit of a wave behind, possibly. Let's just see. Let's go back to my white paint here. Just think about this. Just so it sort of appears to sit more in the water, more realistically. Right, I think that is me done. It's just a few gulls there. Maybe a bit of a cabin. Don't overdo it. Let's stop there. Right. So hopefully, let's try and make a conclusion now. So a scene, a seascape scene, completely made up of your own imagination, a couple of boats for interest, do your debrief. Maybe my horizon, I could have had it at just a little bit lower, I think, because that mast, look at that mast, it's gone above, it's touched the top of the paper. Ideally, if I came down maybe a centimetre, that might be better. You try and learn these lessons, to try and correct things the next time around. Sense of movement in the boats, movement in the sea. Practice your wave formation. Get out a plain piece of paper if you've got a minute to spare during the TV advert breaks. Just have a little bit of fun making some marks of waves, and then do a bit of cross hatching where the darker areas will be, right, in planning your painting. As I say, I thought quite a good subject during lockdown for a lot of us. Maybe running a bit dry on materials we have available. Yeah. hope you like that. Let me answer any last questions now for you before I end the session. By the way, the next online demo, I'm going to plan for late May. And I'm going to do, and somebody on here called Kate will know this scene. Where is it? We're going to do a nice sunny, let me get rid of this question box. A nice sunny scene, completely different. This is Fivizzano in Tuscany, a little square cafe, some figures, sun coming down, contre-jour against the light, bit of foliage as well with a tree. That's what I plan doing in May. Let me just show you the resource for this, if this works. So this is what I want to do in May. This will probably be May the 24th, Sunday, May the 24th. All right, a sunny scene, Fivizzano. Right, let me go back to my main video. There we are. So let me just answer any questions you've got. Kazim, you painted green under the first waves. What is the idea? So I'm getting in a little bit of different values in here, really. That's what I'm trying to do. Kazim, hopefully I understood your question. Do you use a mister to slow drying? Very rarely. I did do a video using a nano mister recently. Or you can use, yeah, I've got a little spray bottle, but no, very, very rarely. I just, if you think well, you need to know the humidity of where you're working. If we're outdoors, probably it's less humid. If we're indoors, more controlled atmosphere. Make sure the paper is really wet. Do your drawing, make sure the paper is really wet. I could have wet that area a couple of times and it would have made it damper, so for longer. So yeah, so very rarely do I use that mister to slow the drying. Sheila, what color was the line on the boat? Use any color. I could use a blue, a red, honestly, anything. Be careful with the far boats. Don't use a red or an orange because that will bring them further forwards. Kenny, do you ever do any nocturnal city scenes where you decide which comes first, the sky or the bright buildings? Somebody on my Patreon scheme has sent me a few nocturnal US scenes. I've got very few night photos, to be honest with you. I very rarely have done them, but it would be a great subject, Kenny. So stay tuned. I would like to do one, but I'm just looking for some decent resource material. Hyunmi, can we have one of your early sample paintings as well when you email us? Well, down at the bottom of the screen, can you see a practice painting by Tim? There's one there. You can just click on that to download it. So hopefully you pick that up. If anyone's got any further questions, probably best to email me, timothywilmot@gmail.com. Now, your paintings, please email me by the, where are we now, the 19th. Please email me by the 9th, so 2 weeks, okay? Email me by the, what's that, the 4th of May? 3rd of May, 4th of May, something like that. 4th of May, 2 weeks. send me a photo of your painting, and you don't need to put too much comments in the email. And then a week after that, I will create a compilation video of all the paintings I've received. And as I say, just throw in my 2 cents worth of what I thought went well, maybe what you might need to just sort of continue on concentrating on for future paintings. So please, I'd love to see your paintings. I'd like to thank everyone for attending live. Maybe some of our Australian, Asian community weren't able to listen live, so I do apologize for that. I have to make some decision on what time to run these, and generally I find late afternoon UK time is quite good zone either side of UK time, London time to elsewhere. So apologies if it's not right. Look out for the recording. Come back here in about half an hour's time. Should be up there. Maybe that chat. Let me just get rid of this question. Yeah, maybe this chat will still keep going there. Please type stuff in there. As I say, if you do have any specific questions, email me, timothywilmot@gmail.com. But thanks very much, everyone, for your time. Hopefully that's been a bit of a distraction from all the troubles that I'm sure nearly all of us are experiencing and seeing in our different locations. But stay safe, everyone. I'm going to end the broadcast now. But thanks very much again for your time. Happy painting, and I look forward to seeing your paintings. Thanks very much indeed. Bye-bye.